welcome back to podcast 55. I got it right because I checked. And we are in studio. It's been a few since we've done this, and Josh Coughlin, one of our OXM teammates, is in with us, and we're going to discuss kind of his prep for season and what he's kind of got going on, because we've talked about Jesse and I plenty, and we'll kind of give you an update where we stand with some deer and plots and season rolling around and corn coming out and beans. Did you see that on your way here? Jeff's combining his beans by his house.
Oh, is he? Yeah. I saw a combine out there. I didn't know that it was Jeff over there, but yeah, the beans are drying down. It's good to be that time.
Yeah, I went to Florida for a week and I just got back, and I'm back to work today, and I was curious if that would happen. And a couple of farmers started right before I left, and then now they're really getting going.
Yeah, I mean, it's like as soon as you see that first like yellow leaf on the beans, it's like a week later and they're totally dry and pretty much ready.
Yeah, they've been pulling seed corn up by me a lot, so
The dove's ready to be shot at?
that field's not out yet.
Oh, well, that's a bummer.
It is, but yeah, there's one like quarter mile away from there that's out. Was in yesterday, not like an 80 acre.
It's going to happen fast. I'd
Yep.
say mid-October, most of the stuff probably be out unless we get some of those rains.
Yeah.
It's been a weird
so.
weird year. We got a lot of rain early, then
Then it wasn't even bad. Like during the middle of summer, it was fine. Like it was enough to, like, you go, 10 days rain,
Right.
5 days
and
rain.
then 5 days rain in a row. And
First year in a while I've had to mow my lawn actually every week that we got enough rain that everything was growing, which was great. So I converted like all my food plots except for, I put a new one in, but I converted all my other ones to clover plots because I was so sick of relying on the fall rains that seemed to never come, and then I'd have to just overseed everything with like winter rye, and that'd be pretty much all I had.
Yeah.
Because the brassicas would get burned out. You catch, you time it on a rain, catch a little rain, come up, and then nothing
die.
nothing for a month.
Storing of my brassica plots forever.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
it's been historically proven that when my plots look good, yours look like crap.
Yeah, one of these years I'll get a good plot, and like Mitch's is down in the bottom, or like Austin's in Wisconsin, like these green lush fields. I'm like, I've never had a brassica plot look like that ever in my life.
My best one to date is probably the one this year, and there's deer standing in the plot, and the leaves are hitting their bellies.
I've never had one that good.
It's pretty sweet, and there's a lot of deer using it too.
The best one I've had was there were like 1 out of 5 years that I've owned that place. I guess not counting this year, 4 years. But we got like 3 rains right after I put it in, and like plenty of rain. Everything came up. It looked awesome, and then of course super dry August and September, and it still looked pretty good. It's still the best I've had. But yeah, I've just put everything into clover, and they all look great. I mowed it a couple times this year. Weeds are down. Even all of them, so I got a 1 acre food plot. That's the one that I was doing fall rotations in before. I converted the other ones to clover last year. So I did a clover brassica mix in the fall. Brassicas didn't do very good, but the clover got in there in the fall. I just overseeded them all a little bit. And then the 1 acre food plot I put into clover in the spring. So it's first year clover, and it looks great too.
Nice.
And I've had clover in that plot before, and I took it out and put beans in and stuff, and I just put it back. Clover seems to do good there, and nothing else does.
That's
so.
great. And you have
perfect year for clover.
Oh, absolutely wonderful.
perfect
Yeah,
for
I
clover.
frost seeded my clover on my farm, and it's beautiful. I had to mow it probably I think 3 times. But it's lush. It needs some rain right now because it's dry spell we've been in, but they keep moving. It's always in that 10-day forecast where there's 3 or 4 days that there's a really good rain chance. And they keep kind of just pushing it back, and there's a chance, but I don't know if it's a good or great one. So
Last weekend it was supposed to rain this weekend, and it was probably not going to happen now.
Yep.
It's almost definitely not going to happen.
No.
So hopefully we catch a few of those just to rejuvenate the clover that's been eaten down and starting to turn. And
One good thing about my plots in southern Iowa is, for whatever reason, I have no bucks there in the summer and almost no deer, and they all show up late September, early October. I was pretty concerned the first year that I owned the place. I was like, there ain't no deer here. This is really
I
bad.
bought a farm with no deer.
Bought a farm with no deer.
What's wrong with this farm?
I closed on it in December 2019, so I did like 2 late muzzleloader hunts out there, and I actually did see 1 mature buck. So I knew there were some deer out there, a couple of does. So I knew there was deer around it sometimes, but then put some cameras out that summer, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's like no deer here anywhere.
Nothing.
And then just every year it seems like once their antlers harden up, just slowly some more deer start coming back, and usually ones that I've seen from previous years.
Yeah.
I haven't had a ton of surprises out there, but
So you're in the same boat as me. We're waiting for that scramble to happen and have something show up. Jesse's got some nice ones on camera,
seen
Yeah,
that.
just not consistent. I mean,
but they're there at
they're
least.
there. Like the one on my farm that I've been looking for, that we've had pictures on there for 4 years. He's been gone like a month and a half. But I'm the south 80 of the section. There's a north 80. Then on the other side of the gravel road is a 400-acre bean field.
Okay.
He's there.
He's there.
He's
for
there.
sure.
Just a matter of
There's no
time.
reason for him to be on me right now.
Yeah.
He's over there eating, but as soon as that turns, last year he showed up like October 16th and was pretty consistent all season long. So now I have beans there, corn, brassicas, clover, everything he wants.
And you got the history of
I
when you
know
know.
he's going to be there. So now it's just capitalizing on
Yeah.
the history and getting in there and hunting him when I need to.
The trail camera history and the history of your deer are, like, in my opinion, one of the best ways to kill a deer. The next next
for
year.
sure. Yeah.
That deer 2 years ago, it was all based on trail cameras from the previous year, basically.
Knowing when he shows up and knowing when to hunt. And
I missed it by 1 day on that deer. For the first encounter I had with him, year before he daylighted and had a scrape. I think it was October 26th, and the year that I ended up killing him, same conditions, October 26th, except for the year previous it had rained the 25th. He was there the 26th. This year it rained the 24th. He daylighted on the 25th, but I already had work off, so I went down the 26th anyway, and I did see him. I heard him get up out of his bed. I mean, I knew he was bedding over there. Walked down the hill. First time I saw him, so I mean, it was close to working. And then November 5th, I caught up with him again, but not to be confused with last year's deer, which was also November 5th. But
yeah, that's a good year or a good day.
Yep.
Probably one of those you take off and like, I don't really know what I got going on. I'm going deer hunting. Sorry.
Yeah, that particular year, my dad drew a bow tag for Iowa.
Okay.
And that was the week that he took off to come out. So I was just down there the whole week. And he was, once he showed up, he's really consistent. I knew, he beds right there on the property, and it's only 52 acres. Probably spent, I would guess, 75% of his daylight hours there.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I saw him. I killed him on the 4th time I saw him, and I only hunted him for 4 days.
Yeah,
so
that's great. That's
that's
great.
like 90% of the battle is being in the ball game when they're walking around in daylight.
Yep.
That's exciting, and I'm excited to see what shows back up on your farm.
We got 3 deer last year, 3 4-year-old 10 points that all made it. 2 of them were like 140s. One of them had pretty good mass and stuff. They all have good potential, but there's one that the neighbors found the sheds, and he was like in the mid 150s last year. He already has split brows, some trashes on his bases. It looks like his G2s are going to split maybe. Can't wait for that deer to show back up, because I think that
He could
deer's
be
got, that's
major potential.
That's the one I'm crossing my fingers on.
That's
for this
good.
year. He spends quite a bit of time on our place too. He spends a lot of time on the neighbors also, and he's a big bow hunter. He actually shot, didn't score very high, but he was like a 7.5-year-old buck that was real consistent on our place. And then he disappeared for like 2 days, and then I got a call from the neighbors that he shot him.
Oh, man.
But it happens. Sometimes you get them.
It's good to have good neighbors too, that you can
Well, it's nice
talk.
that he called, because we were going to go down there that night actually and try to hunt him. And good thing he called and said shot him that
You don't have to
morning.
waste your time.
Right.
That's good to have.
Deal with it, pout a little bit, and then you're like, hey, at least you know.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, there's nothing worse than hunting a dead deer.
I know.
Communication is nice between guys that like to hunt like us, and I mean, just in general, you never know what you're going to find out.
Yep, and that property down there, it's a small property. We are the smallest landowner in the block by far. Most people are a couple hundred acres to, I think the second smallest guy is 100 acres. And they're all like-minded. And actually I have like all Amish neighbors. I've heard a lot of horror stories about Amish neighbors. Those guys don't shotgun hunt their place at all. I mean, there were deer, I'd like print off pictures and give it to them and stuff. And there's this deer that was I think he was 5.5 years old, and showed him a picture early on, and he wasn't really all that big, And they told me, they're like, yeah, we actually saw that deer a couple of times, but we weren't totally sure it was him, so we just let him go. Looked like maybe he could have gotten bigger. So, yeah,
that's good.
I got really good neighbors down there, which is, that really makes the neighborhood great.
So they're true Amish. They won't be listening to our podcast, or
I don't believe so. No.
Okay.
Oh, I got a buddy.
If they are, shout out to them.
Yeah.
I got a buddy that had used to run with an Amish kid down in southern Iowa, and he wanted to run trail cameras, so he would buy the Amish kid trail cameras, and the Amish kid would go and put them out, and then he would pull the cards and bring them back to my buddy's house, and they'd go through the computer and look at them. So it's like he couldn't buy them; they couldn't be his, but he could put them out, and
you could run them for somebody else.
I think it was it even something where I think he could turn them on and turn them off and all that stuff. That wasn't a thing. He's like, might be kind of a gray area.
Yeah,
but
just
it's
like
fine.
them running a skid loader and that kind of farm equipment stuff. They can
do it if they're like working for somebody or something like that.
Yep, and that I think that might have been one of the things too. He was hired to do this.
So that's a funny story about my Amish neighbors. They had kind of a similar thing going on. They had a guy that they mow hay for, and the guy said, hey, I got these trail cameras. I got some new ones. You guys want them? And they were like, well, we can't take the trail cameras, but if they're your trail cameras and you want us to run them somewhere, we can do it. So they did that for a couple of years, and then they just called me and said, hey, do you want these trail cameras? Like, some people in our community found out, and they're like, we're not really doing it the way that it's supposed to be done. So,
well, how about you run them for me? And
yeah. Well, because they would do the same thing. They would give me the cards at the end of the season. They wouldn't pull them during the year at all because they would know where to check them. They just put a big card in there, let it fill up all year. They'd give it to me.
That's so much fun.
And they'd be like, hey, we just go through all these pictures and just save the big bucks that are on there and give them back, just send them back to us.
Print off a few pictures and stuff.
Yeah, here you go.
Which was awesome because I was like, wow, I didn't even know these deer were around.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's one thing that I still do is I have maybe 10 or 12 regular cameras, and I'll put them out in random spots in the middle of like my uncle's timber on trails and stuff. Just leave them. Yeah. And I'll pull them when I shed hunt.
Or you'll forget about them.
I've also forgot about them.
You forget a lot because I've done that a couple times, like shed hunting. And I'm like, what is this thing? Oh, someone else put a camera. Oh no, that's mine from 2 years ago.
I need to come up with a better system for keeping track of my trail cameras now because I used to only have like 5, and over the last couple of years I got like 18 now. And I was going through them this year, and I'm like, okay, this one's gonna go here, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I got more cameras on my app than I have sitting here, and I'm like, where did I leave that other camera?
So you don't delete all your app every year?
I just suspend them all.
Oh,
and then
I just delete them all and start over fresh because right now
that's a good idea.
I already have like I don't know how many thousands of pictures.
I have like 50 or 60,000 pictures already, I think. Unfortunately,
yeah, that's pretty good.
53,000
pictures.
79,184.
I think we did this the last time I was here. You guys have like literally like 10 times the pictures that I have, but
most of them are like people driving by the property or
Well, and I have, on the 18 cameras, I think I have 6 of them on the 52 acres in southern Iowa. And then I have like roughly 200 acres of permission I can hunt around here, which is where the other 10 are spread out.
Yeah.
And the southern Iowa one is just, I'm like never down there, or very, way less than around here. It's mostly to keep an eye on the property. We have some cameras that, you get deer on them, but like it's mostly just the entrance trails.
Right, that's how I shot my deer last year was the entrance camera.
That buck 2 years ago, that scrape was on an entrance camera. He happened to hit it. That's
cool.
I put a stand there and then sat there just for that. But
yeah, it's crazy. Like people are thinking deer actually hit scrapes on the road. Like I had where I shot the razorbuck and you videotaped the river bandit. There was a scrape on the gravel road that they were hitting. It was cool. I mean, it's probably still an big old oak tree, and every year there's a scrape right under it.
Still hitting it.
And that's one of the I know they scrape under a lot of stuff, but I was setting up a farm yesterday, and right on the edge of this bean field, there's a bunch of overhanging branches. Like every branch was a scrape branch, only the oaks had scrapes underneath them, and I found that very interesting.
That's weird.
Like there were 3 fresh scrapes in every single one.
But there is a lot of oaks too on your uncle's.
This was the other farm.
Oh, the other farm.
Yeah, but I mean there were walnuts. There were a couple other. I don't remember.
They don't like walnuts.
Not to rub. The leaves fall off right away.
Well, then you ever? I think like
they're acidic. The whole tree will kill.
That smell. Like they have like to me, it kind of smells like soap or something almost. Like they have some kind of a weird smell to them.
That's I have a stand on that farm on the other side, and it's in a walnut tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I have like 5 walnuts in my yard, and like when I run over the walnuts or like drive under the tree, I get that smell of like I don't know. It's like a antiseptic or soap.
Yeah,
kind of
there's
smell.
the walnuts will actually kill your other trees that are fruit bearing.
Oh,
And
okay.
it killed our plum. It's killing the plum now. It killed our peach tree. I just ended up pulling it. It had one peach last year. It was directly under the walnut, probably 10 yards away. I pulled it right out, roots and all, because it killed that tree.
Wow.
So is it the walnut, or is it like
I
the
think it's
roots,
a little
or
bit of
just-
everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I've heard that they, will kill other plants, but I didn't.
Yep, they
I never
totally
knew. I always
fruit
thought-
trees. Yeah, you're better off with a bunch of cedar rust around than one walnut.
Oh, I did not know that. We have apple trees in our yard too, but they're 100 yards away from the
Yeah,
walnut trees.
you're probably good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know if it's the drip edge of the tree or the actual walnuts and the acidity that gets in the soil.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure. That's a good one to look up. If you guys know, comment in the comment section. Yeah. But so yeah, deer season. You're in the same boat as me. Jesse's got some big ones. One of my best farms right now. I'm looking forward to youth season. We just put up a new Muddy Bull XL, and we got that up, which took entirely way too long. But the amount of deer that have showed up because of Jen's grandpa not going back there near as much as he used to. He used to drive back there every night at like 6 o'clock, scare all the deer. There is more deer there than there's ever been since I've been dating or married to her.
We've been saying every year, it's like, love Harry to death. He's
Oh, man.
He's awesome. I love Harry. But it's like, man,
I'm talking like
if you could just not drive back there starting like September 1st.
there's like 20 to 30 deer out there. And there's no big bucks there yet, but they'll end up showing up.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a lot of little bucks, and that's Jace wants to shoot a buck. He
Right.
shot a doe last year.
Oh, yeah.
So there's going to be some opportunities there, and
Nice.
we got the muddy chairs and the male. Jesse's got to put his together, and
Yeah, I still got to get my blind up, but hopefully next week. Josh is going to help me and hopefully get that up. And
it's a nice addition. It's in our best spot on the farm because there's 2 acres of alfalfa, then there's a kind of a waterway, 2 acres of alfalfa, and then 2 acres, and I have food plots on the bottom of all of them. So there's like in total like 6 plots there.
Nice.
And 3 of them look really, really good. They're all growing, but
Yep.
I'm excited to see. We had a deer last year that showed up. He showed up like 3 years ago as like a 2-year-old, and he had splits. And last year he had splits, and he's probably mid 60s.
Nice.
Really cool deer. And I've talked about this deer before, but I met a guy down by Redfield last year. He was dragging out a doe. Well, he has same pictures of this deer, so we can actually follow him. Like in one night, he's going like 2 to 3 miles as a crow flies, and I'm sure he's even going further than that. Yeah, so it's cool. I don't know when he's going to show back up, but then there's another big 10-pointer there that was there the last couple of years, and he's kind of a late November when he shows up.
Okay.
So there's opportunity there, and it's all beans to the north, and it's going to be exciting. One of these mornings I'm going to wake up and be like, finally, I got a big deer to hunt.
So around the house here on the permission farms, I have a couple of big deer that have showed up already. One of them I have a shed off him from when he's 2 years old, and he's 5 now. So I haven't had sheds off of him since, but I've had pictures of him every single year. And he always had kind of a weird looking rack. But this year he actually kind of cleaned up. He had like splits on his G2s last year and stuff, but they're kind of weird looking, like I said. And his G3s were like really short, but he's bigger and just typical now. And he's huge brows, big mass. I would probably shoot that deer, but I mean, he's probably upper 140s as an 8-point.
Yeah.
Like he's a good deer, huge body and stuff. But I sent you a picture of my number 1 target, which I haven't had a picture of him since then. But I did hunt him a little bit last year when I think he was a 5-year-old last year. He was a 150s 8-point, kind of a unique looking rack and stuff. But this year he's not an 8-point. He had like 15 scoreable points in was that July 10th, and he was all knobbed up and stuff. Like he definitely had a lot more growing to do.
This was his year where he did the jump.
He made the jump. Like I say, probably 6 years old this year. So I don't think that deer lives on the property I have permission to hunt on. So it'll be probably difficult to get on him, especially if there's other deer that, I mean, it's fun to hunt a specific deer, but if you get like one nighttime picture of a deer, yep, that's him. Yep, that's him.
Did you see what Emily texted about it? I just noticed that.
That was on there when I took the screenshot.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that till now. That's hilarious.
I didn't
Zoom
notice
in on
that
you like,
either.
what the hell's that?
Yeah, who's this guy? So that's exciting. He could
Yes.
really be something.
He's definitely the biggest deer I've ever hunted. So I think he was probably close to 170 in that picture, and I would imagine he got bigger since July 10th.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
You'd
definitely.
be surprised how much they put on
Yep.
in
He
that,
could be a
that month of
freak.
July.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would
It's crazy.
really like one more picture of him to know he's alive before I really like put all my eggs in the basket.
Yeah,
and
and
try
yeah,
to
and
find him.
say that, they could get hit by cars. They could. EHD has been a
Yep.
little bit of a factor in Iowa, not so much around here.
Right.
I think some of that, you see that transition when we talk about EHD with the deer going out of velvet. It seems like a lot of that happens as they're getting closer and their velvet shrinking, and those
Yes.
mosquitoes or those flies, midge fly can get into their
Yep.
blood system a little easier. So hopefully we're past that now.
Yes.
Hopefully.
I'm hoping that we're past that too. It's I haven't really heard a whole lot of people having EHD problems this year, which is great. But yeah, you never know. Like
Yeah,
there are deer that die
right.
of it every year, even if there's not a big
Exactly. There's an interactive map that the DNR has out that I think you can submit pictures or locations.
Yeah.
And you can go on there and see where at and what counties have them. And I think there's probably a few those outliers that have way more than the others. So
And then are people also reporting actual EHD deer? You don't know.
yeah, there's many diseases out there, but that's the most common that
Right.
people contribute
if
that
you
to
find a
every
deer
year.
just randomly dead, or especially if it's like by water or something, but they would go to if they got hit by a car, and
Yeah.
you just never know. I mean, they're super tough, so it's just,
Yep.
It seemed like EHD, like deer were dying of EHD in like October last year.
Not so much.
I don't know if it was last year.
There was a few. There was like it was 2 or 3 years ago. When was I hunting that? Yeah, I think maybe it was 3 or 4 years ago. But I had a couple that it was early October, and I found a little buck and a doe dead.
Emily found a doe dead. It was like October 10th or something like that. And I had walked in that same way October 1st, and the deer wasn't there. It was literally in the water in Panther Creek.
Yeah.
And we had, I think he was a 7-year-old buck that disappeared right around the same time.
You could have got it.
Yep, we had pictures of him all summer. And then he usually transitions to the south, and we just never picked him up in the south.
I think a little bit about EHD too, and I don't think there's a whole lot known based on studies and stuff. But I think when the deer gets it, they can fight it off because that big buck. That big buck that had the 4 drops that I had pictures of.
Yeah.
You see that syndrome where their jaw's swollen,
Yeah.
and they get that big jaw. And the next year he went way downhill, and then he ended up, I think he died. He looked real bad. But I could always tell it was that deer because his forehead was so dark and his ears just, every characteristic about his face looked just like the pictures when he was a good, big deer.
Yeah, with that kickstand.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's
cool looking deer.
that was my favorite deer I've ever had pictures of, and I'm still trying to get the one cool shed. The squirrels ate the other one just down to nothing, but the one shed from the neighbor, and I keep offering him like, hey, what can I do? Name your price. Like I want that shed, but
Name your price and he won't do it. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I think
$1.
Well, because I've been watching a lot of the Chasing November stuff. I thought one of the guys like early October last year was finding dead deer, like in a creek. Yeah,
that
one
was-
of the
that was
guys, the
last
guy that
year.
ended up killing that spot and stalk on the ground.
Yep.
Oh,
Caleb
Greiner.
Yep.
He was finding like dead deer on the creek everywhere, and it was in
It was in
October.
October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of that goes to weather too.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you get that hard frost and it potentially kills the midges, I think they can probably rehatch and come back. But we get to October, we have that chance of a hard frost. So
Yeah.
So I found a match set of sheds last year off of a deer that, don't their antlers don't harden up or something if they get EHD?
Yeah,
Sometimes they don't fully harden.
Yeah, I have some sheds inside to a deer that I believe had EHD. He fought it off, that big 10-pointer.
Yeah,
And
yep.
on the ends of them, they were kind of brittle, like
Fiber-ish.
yeah. And then
Fiber-ish.
Mark killed a Lucky 7 that the nubs. They were like they sawed them off, and they were
Spongy.
yeah, almost spongy, but they kind of hardened. They
Yep.
just weren't fully hardened.
Yep.
So yeah, the sheds that I found last year, the tips of the tines were they were like hollowed out, and then it had kind of like healed around it with
Yep.
bone, you know. But it almost looked like if you ever seen like a goat with like horn rot or something like that, you know, where they literally like just kind of hollows out on the end. And I was like, man, I wonder what happened to this deer, because I found the one side and I was like, oh, that was weird. And I eventually found the other side. I'm like,
Same.
oh, both sides are like this.
He's a
And I wondered if that
EHD
was like
survivor.
Yeah, EHD
Yep.
survivor.
Yeah, because don't they say there's basically two strands, where one's like a imminent death right away, and then the other one they can like fight off.
probably more their like immune system
Yeah,
and
they're-
what they're
They get
how
a
healthy
new-
they are.
If they get a new strain and have no immunity, it's harder to fight off than if it's a strain that's been around before
Right.
and they might have.
Which
some
happens
disease.
with mosquitoes. I
Yep.
mean, you see that all the time. It's not as published as
Right.
the midge fly.
As if I really know anything about EHD.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
listen to
mean,
podcasts and watch stuff too.
yeah, we kind of understand it to a certain
Yeah.
perspective, but
Right.
not.
Have a basic
In depth.
understanding and knowledge and dealing with it. You know, you kind of learn a lot just being out and about and around it.
So, Greg, I think you reached out to me about in shotgun season a couple of years ago about just submitting some heads to the DNR for CWD testing.
Yeah.
And speaking of diseases, you know, I've heard some things recently about, you know, some people not really thinking that CWD is that big of a problem.
That's a huge topic,
Yeah,
and
what do
I've
you
been
think about
kind of on the front line and collecting those samples. And if you're talking about the two diseases, they're completely different,
Oh yeah,
right?
for sure.
So does EHD? It affects the deer herd right now. Like CWD is going to be long term, and you see these other states that have it that have tried to mitigate it, and it's. Is there an immunity to it? Certain deer herds, probably. I think that's what it's going to take to get over that hump. But you can't just go in and wipe out a deer. Then you're pissing off the hunters. You might have helped with that, but it's still going to that. Was it the neuron or whatever stays? Prion, yeah, stays in the soil for years.
Yeah.
So once another deer comes back, they're going to get it. So I think those deer that are resilient to it are going to have to fight it off, and it's going to become
then it's in their genetic code, and then
it's
they
going to
pass
have
it
to, it's going
on,
to become a norm probably in the next 10, 15 years where, you know, you see all these counties getting it. It's just a matter of time. Like
Right.
you can't just kill every deer and wipe them all out and be
for the
I don't-
chance of it.
Right. I don't like the mitigation techniques either. I haven't seen or heard of any data showing how effective it is, and you're completely wiping out.
yeah.
the
And I
herd
think there's from the DNR standpoint, those hot spots, I think you're definitely going to help slow it down.
Sure.
But just wiping out every deer around there is probably not the great. I mean, you're already pissing off the hunters because they're gonna have no deer to hunt.
So I think Oklahoma just passed a bill where they're going to introduce farm raised deer that have been
Yes.
selected to have the the resistant gene, and they're going to release them into the herd.
That's great.
To spread that around.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea
Yeah.
too, to try to get. And they don't have a big problem in Oklahoma yet, and they're trying to get ahead of it and just say, hey, we got deer that we know are resistant to it or have some resistance to CWD. Let's get these into our herd now.
And if those
I think that's
technologies are out there and
Yeah.
the state can do that, and hopefully our deer biologists and they can maybe implement the same thing. I don't know if I don't work for them anymore, so it's hard telling what they're going to do. And if they do that, I think that's a great idea.
I mean, we killed one during shotgun season because we always donate our heads. Our group used to kill a ton of deer every year, and we had one that came back that had CWD like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was on one of the right across the road from one of the public pieces.
And so we talk about collecting these deer. There's technicians and wildlife biologists and Tech 1, Tech 2s, they're seasonals that go out and they'll find these shotgun groups and they'll say their quota for like Almakee's 2,000 heads. They'll put more troops, technicians up there to go around shotgun groups and collect. And what they're doing is when we did it, we took the brainstem, I think occipital condyle or whatever, and we cut it, took the brainstem out, used a little spoon that was like, take a little scalpel in there, pop it out, and then cut it, put one in a whirl pack, and put a lymph node in there too, and then have formaldehyde jars and put them in there as well, and kind of split that up. So if they get a false positive, they can go back and retest to see that. And I think they've changed that up since then.
Yeah, it's a
I think
little
it's
bit different.
just lymph nodes now.
Just
I don't
lymph
think they're going
nodes.
for the brainstem. But I don't know if they do whirl pack, or if they're doing, because it was kind of a pain in the
I
ass
think they
with
did the roll
formaldehyde.
packs. It was they put.
So we used to have little jars that you'd have to collect, and so if you shoot a trophy buck that you're just going to year them out, they can come in and cut it, take the lymph node, and then you still get the rack.
And the guys that come and do ours, they never are like, well, you have to do this. You know, most like, you know, if someone shoots a big buck and they want to get it mounted, they don't even care.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, that's fine. Here's a whole bunch of
they're
does
just trying
and smaller
to,
bucks.
and they're not taking the basically the yearlings.
Yep,
So
no fawns.
any mature deer, and I did this for what 4 falls. So I've been up different parts of the county helping collect heads, and it's fun, it's interesting, but at the same time, like you said, you know, CWD and EHD, like what's going to be in the long term? Is CWD going to be a thing where Oklahoma shows that those deer basically got rid of it by themselves by mating with other deer and passing the genes? Hopefully.
And I mean, has there been a documented case of a wild deer dying from CWD? Or we only test them when they're dead, and we only test roadkill and hunter-killed deer?
That's a great question, and you'll have to ask a biologist because I honestly don't know that answer.
That's what other podcasts and stuff that I've heard and people talk about this, so they say too. I don't know. I haven't heard that of a case of like, yeah, this deer, was sick.
That's the biggest argument on both sides is there's never been a confirmed, allegedly never been a confirmed.
I believe there has been confirmed.
Like this deer 100% died because of CWD.
Well, and they say it's like AIDS or whatever, right? That you get CWD, it weakens your immune system, then you die from something else.
It's like a lot of the COVID deaths. It wasn't that. It was all the other things that made it. This weakened everything, and then
which ended up killing the deer.
Yep, it succumbed to it.
But I think there is documented where the deer actually have died in pens from CWD.
Yeah, in pens, and that's like I said.
But that's where it's definitely a rabbit hole to jump through. But it's where a lot of this conversation goes, and it's each state's doing something different, and hopefully our state can grab hold of it. And
right. Yeah, I mean, my overarching question, and not to be answered here, is just okay. If a deer's average lifespan in Iowa is 3.5 years, let's say, and then the whole state's covered in CWD, what's the average lifespan of a deer? Does it change? Does it go down?
That has CWD?
Right. Yeah. Does it change? Does it go down?
The biggest thing is not necessarily the deer dying, and I think there's definitely studies out where you're eating CWD deer, and I think they've some kind of monkeys that they were feeding brain matter to. I want to say that one of the monkeys died from it as of recent, like in the last couple of years.
That's why they don't want you to transfer heads from state to state and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you got to get them taxidermy there. You got to get them skinned out.
And if you do a year amount, you got to get all the brain matter and everything
boil it out.
So if you're not eating the deer brain, in theory, you shouldn't get it from the meat.
Correct. That's everything I've ever seen. Spinal fluid, and it glands.
Yep.
It organs, stuff like that. Because the meat is.
But when you're cutting up a deer, how many
Yep.
lymph nodes you going through?
You
how
could
much
potentially eat a lymph node or something. On accident,
or you could
I guess
pop it open.
Yep.
There's a lot of variables that are probably undetermined that we don't know about, but we can only do it with the information that we have at hand. So
yeah,
it's a very interesting topic, and I'm glad you brought it up.
I was wondering what you thought about it because I know you'd been doing research on it.
And I'm on both ends where I can see from a hunter's perspective to as far as what the state is trying to do and mitigate the issue at hand. So
right, yeah, and I think I think that the states and everybody's trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah,
and I'm glad Oklahoma's trying something different.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Yeah. That is awesome.
I mean, scientifically, it makes sense.
Yep.
So, base it off of that, and then
they can add some other genes in there too.
A big old buck.
Yeah.
Big old buck pie.
We'll be number one.
Yeah. For sure.
After we see Oklahoma have a spurge of 200-inch 2-year-olds.
Yeah. Right.
Which is definitely a thing because I mean Adam's got deer in the pen that as a 2-year-old they're over 200.
Yeah.
And his aren't even like crazy deer.
No, they're just
average high fence deer. So it's
start messing with genetics, might as well make it go gung ho.
You see some of those walking around, you're just like, poor deer.
Yeah, right.
Like,
How they hold it up.
600 inches
Yeah.
of antler.
But the bottom line is with CWD, if we can't figure something out, I don't want these days to be the good old days.
Right.
I don't want to sit when I'm 80 looking at my deer like, well, that'll never happen again. I want my son and his son to be able to hunt caliber deer that we have here in Iowa.
Well, and I mean, it's crazy to even think, like, before we really got into hunting, you talk about guys that, like, in the late 90s, they were seeing giant deer before food plots, all these things, and killing.
But if you go back even further than that, there's counties that they don't even see deer in. Like, you see a deer, it's like, oh my gosh, I seen a deer. And now with agriculture and everything else, that's spiked the deer numbers and made Iowa what it is now.
Yep. Iowa has, in my opinion, and maybe there's some problems here and there that they could fix, but we have the best regulations in the country. It may be the best. And there are other states that I think would be better than Iowa if they had the exact same regulations.
Missouri?
Yeah, Missouri for one, for sure.
Kansas is working towards a lot of things.
Yep.
The different, like, landowner stuff. They went to $1, which I see it both ways. I that's been a topic in different groups that we've been a part of where they're like, I'd love a $1 tag, a $1. Like, I don't know, maybe.
I can see the $1, but at the same time, I mean, I think the landowner thing in Iowa. So I'm from Michigan, as I said in the other podcast, you guys know. But in Michigan, I mean, you can't find parcels the size that you can find in Iowa because it's all been chunked up already. If they did let's say they did a $1 state and then every landowner gets it, there's so many landowner tags. I mean, and everybody hunts. So if Iowa keeps parceling up land, making it smaller and smaller, they probably will have to address the landowner tag. But at this point, most land is still big enough that, it's not like you got one additional tag and it's 660 acres and you got like 50 guys in there. Not 50, exaggeration, but you got 20 guys in there, 30 guys in that 1 mile.
On our side, we have the Iowa Sportsman's Alliance. We have a lot of friends that are running that in it. And they're going up to bat for us, not necessarily just the Iowa landowner, but the Iowa resident for hunting.
And that is a great thing that Iowa has too. I don't think a lot of states have the organizations that Iowa has for, lobbying and just people that are really looking out for the interest of the residents and the hunters in the state. And that's something that Iowa has done. It's great.
So we as hunters need to support them. I mean, so we can keep Iowa great and keep the big deer here and keep like those non-residents that want to come here and hunt. I'm sorry, it's a 4 or 5 year draw to whatever zone, or maybe it's 3, but that's why we're great. Like,
they could just make their state better, and then our draw would get shorter.
That's right.
Adopt some of the laws that Iowa has.
If you want to move here and buy land, you can hunt here every year.
And we know a lot of guys, including you, that have moved here. Maybe not necessarily just for hunting, but that's a factor. Yeah, and like Aaron, he moved to Iowa because of hunting, because he watched the juries, all those guys growing up. I want to move to Iowa, and first year he was here, he about killed a 200 incher on public. And
to go to the land prices in Iowa are pretty high compared to a lot of the surrounding states. You can
land prices is a whole nother topic, but if you're within 35 to an hour of Des Moines, the prices are double, if not triple.
Oh yeah.
It's like, we've talked about it all the time. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It totally makes sense, but I'm just like, I cannot believe he's like, this 9-acre piece is $395,000. I'm like, what?
Yeah. And so I started selling real estate. I haven't sold any yet, but I've dabbled, and after this, I got to go potentially show a client a piece with a house and acreage. But the price is like 10 years ago, I should have bought something down south at 40 acres.
Yep.
But it's just going to keep going. Like, well, the best investment on earth is totally earth. Like, you would have made money if you had invested in 10 acres down south, 5 acres, 100 acres.
Well, I mean, so my property in southern Iowa is a mile from the Missouri border, and I bought mine 5 years ago, so I got it for lower than the post-COVID prices. But you just go 1 mile down the road and cross the border, and there are properties for sale right now. And I mean, it is
in Missouri.
$2,000 less per acre.
Yeah.
And it's,
I think, I mean, now's the time to buy. The market, will it ever crash? Maybe, but I doubt it. Look at the market trends.
I mean, you look at a line
Not for
graph.
land. No, I don't think land. It's the bottom's not gonna fall out, because
No.
what'll happen is if it falls out, you're gonna have all these guys that can afford it are just gonna buy.
Yep.
Just gonna buy everything.
But it will fluctuate from
Yep,
year to year.
it'll-
It's never like we're in 10 years from now, we're probably like, oh, I wish I would have spent this much money and bought.
Wish I would have spent $5,000 an acre on that farm.
Yeah, and
now it's
that's-
worth $7,000.
I felt like I overpaid a little bit for my place too. So I bought it for $4,000 an acre, and I didn't know anything about it. It was listed for $4,000 an acre, and I was like, sure, I'll buy it for that much. That sounds good. Like, I didn't even
You got to
offer anything
steal,
else.
buddy.
Oh, and so I put an offer in a couple of weeks ago. I was trying to buy another 20-acre piece in the same area. It bordered the Rathbun public hunting land. I put an offer in for $6,000 an acre, and they didn't take it, and it sold like 2 days later.
Yeah,
So
it's-
I'm guessing they got 6,500 an acre.
Dude, around here, it's literally the low end is 8,000. If you're damn lucky if you can find something for 8,000 acre, the high end's 26,000.
Oh yeah.
It's that crazy.
Yep. I mean, that's why I look at land in the Centerville area, because it's more affordable. Everybody listening to this, don't go buy all the land.
Yeah.
You get away from a big metro, and the prices are going to drop.
Everybody and their brother wants 10 acres with a house.
Right.
Everybody.
And that's the thing. It's like, even down where I bought mine, mine's 40, and my price was good because I bought it from a buddy. It is what it is, but like there was a piece by my uncle's that just sold. It was like 63 or 64 acres, and no money on it. Sold for
No income.
68
Yep.
an acre.
That's nothing.
And it's literally 150 yards off the interstate.
Wow.
Like it's great. Yeah. And there's big deer in the area. It's a nice spot, and he's got a pool building on it, and somebody from out of state bought it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a dirt cheap from prices around here.
Yeah.
Compare them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Out of that 60-some acres, maybe 20 of it's actually huntable. So maybe.
I need to make more money so I can buy more land.
I know. Yeah, I hear you, brother. Someday.
Yeah.
Hopefully not in 10 years when it's ungodly high.
Well, that's been like our kind of thing is with buying mine. Like, there's a 40 to the north that I know the guy would sell, but what's he going to sell it for? And there's not that much. There's like hardly any income on it. There might be 10 acres of tillable on it, and I could probably roll another 5 or 6 into my CRP because there's more of the ag field on top that has the farming history on it. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm going to have to pay another $1,500 to $2,000 an acre just to get it, and then have less income off of it.
Right. You're just paying more for it.
You're paying more for it. I'm going to even out on mine, and it's going to end up being, that $6,000 an acre.
But then again, we're talking. I went and looked at a property last night with a house that I wouldn't even say is worth $100,000. It's 42 acres, doing a private sale. You know what they're starting out at? $700,000. 42 acres.
Yeah.
It's all zoned in ag, but obviously the house, and it's at $16,000 an acre. That's ridiculous.
Yep. They're prices, especially when you're close to Des Moines. I didn't even look. I'm like, it's too much.
It's insane.
But like you said, land has been a good investment historically, and it probably will be. We'll probably look back in 10 years and go, man, land is cheap back
Wish
then.
I didn't put my money in crypto. I should put it in land.
Yeah. As long as you don't do something stupid. Like, like there was, remember when beans were like 11 or 12 bucks a washel?
Yep.
And or were they 18?
They were really high.
It was dumb. Yeah. And people were paying $30,000 an acre for tillable in northern Iowa, which is the best dirt you'll ever find. And you can't put enough seed in that ground to make your money back.
I mean, if you're
as long as you're not doing that, it's a great investment.
If you're already a farmer and you have your land paid off,
right,
and you want to buy this place that's near where you're already farming, and you're like, yeah, I'll pay whatever for it because, like, with my other income, I'll just pay it off in a couple of years and whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
So, yeah, I've thought about that also, and I'm like, how do farmers make money off of this when they buy it for that much? But it's got to be that they're just diluting the financing costs or diluting the cost of the land with what's already coming in.
With everything.
Must be nice to have that problem.
Right.
Yep. Got
Right.
too much money and got to buy something.
Yep. I mean, I always think though, if you can afford the payments, and you're not
strapped,
you're not eating ramen because you just bought this property and you like it. might as well buy it because, there will be small fluctuations, but it's probably going to keep going up.
Yeah, in 1 year, I've already got 3 offers on my piece, way above what I paid for it. It's like, all right, if I can now find something that's more feasible to our location, which is very difficult to do, to please my wife, check all my boxes, then I will. But at that point, it's like, well, how about we just build a house here because we can build new, we can still have a little bit of farm to hunt and call it ours.
Yeah.
But that's the American dream. They want, 10, 20 acres and a house, and it's just got to go south.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you got to get going, don't you? You got a dinner tonight?
Yeah, I got a dinner tonight.
Gonna go work a little bit.
I got a little bit of work I got to finish up. I've been doing my workouts in the morning, so I've been going to work a little bit later. Normally I sign off at 3:30 and I'm all set, but I've been getting in a little bit later, so I got a little bit of work to finish up here. So,
well, we appreciate you coming on.
Yep.
It's nice to have someone else in the studio and not just talk about us.
I'm right down the road. Call me.
I hate it. Like every time I go to edit these, I'm like, how sick are people of
listening to us?
Yeah,
they know what's
I'm
going
sick
on.
of us.
So they're like, we know somebody that's got a super raspy voice we can bring on here right now.
He was rooting for the Cyclones, and they beat the Hawkeyes, unfortunately. No, that's not how he lost his voice, but that's a better story.
I had already pretty much started losing it at that time. But
I was watching that game before we go. I was watching that game on the Gulf Coast. Like, it was awesome scenery, and then when they kicked the field goal, I just wanted to chuck my drink across the bar.
I knew it was going to happen. I knew as soon as he threw that interception, I went, here it goes. And but I will say this, normally the kick in the teeth goes against Iowa State. Yeah. Something. It's always I'm like but as soon as he lined up, I'm like, he's gonna nail it. And that thing was good for like another 10 yards.
At least.
Third ever career kick.
And the first one he doinked.
Made it. Yep, and he doinked the first one. Yeah, it's about time things went right for Iowa State.
You guys can have it this year.
Yep. Can't win at home, but
big news from that game was that the over hit, which is an Iowa over.
I have taken the over in both of them, and I've won both bets.
So you get the over when it was at like 37.5 or something like that later in the week. I took the under when it was at 41, and I got the under on that first game.
Yep. Speaking of over and unders, the worst part of being an Iowa fan is hearing from the Iowa State Cyclone fan how many times throughout the entire year till next year that they beat us. And my mother-in-law, I love her, but I said, all right, Lorena, over under that you mentioned this 30 times. She's already said it like a dozen. So
a little tally.
Yeah. That's going to be a bet on that.
The over on that.
So we're just salty. Just give us some time.
Yeah. And the reason we're salty is we see it and everybody sees it. This isn't like, no, this was just a fluke. Like, we all saw what was going to happen.
And this is our Super Bowl. Well, I mean, to an extent,
it is a great rivalry game.
For the residents of
it's a fantastic
Iowa.
rivalry game because you can take all the stats, all the placing, everything you want and throw it out the window.
Yep.
Besides Campbell's first year and like 10 years before that, it is a one-score game, and it's always fun.
It's always a great game.
It's always a good game. Yep. And it's when you lose, it sucks.
Yep.
When you win, it's great. And I've learned over years, I used to hate Iowa State. Like, all my neighbors are Iowa State fans. When they would lose, I would run up and down the street just playing Back in Black the whole time, just rubbing it in their face. And after a while, I'm like, no, I don't do it anymore. Because it used to be, I want you to lose every single game. I hope you don't win a single game. Now it's to the point, I hope you lose this game.
That's it.
Yeah. I could care less. Yeah. So I've come around on it, and so that's just
that's good.
Yeah,
you crossed that bridge.
I would root for Iowa in the Big Ten title game, but they're always playing like Michigan.
So I don't think you're gonna have to worry about that this year.
Oh man, they got smoked by Texas, and I knew that was gonna happen.
Oh, I knew that was gonna happen too. But
they don't got a quarterback. They're too busy trying to win a national title to recruit anybody on the transfer portal.
Well, that Stallions is gone, so Connor Stallions is left, so they don't have all the other teams' plays.
Speaking of leaving, hopefully our head coach leaves.
Yep.
I'm not sure if that was but. All right. We got stuff to do. Thanks for listening, guys and gals.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. just hit a button. You weren't sure why.